I'm here at the Kilburn Hole, the site of a massive eruption that only took place a couple thousand years ago. I'm in the Potrillo Wilderness, a giant volcanic wilderness in southern New Mexico, right along the border of the US and Mexico. And today we're going to talk about how it formed. This wilderness is one of the southernmost regions of the Rio Grande Rift area. It has a myriad of unique features, and some studies say that it could potentially still be active. Long before volcanism started in the region, there was an ancient seaway here around 100 million years ago. This ancient sea was known as the Western Interior Seaway. This led to the deposition of limestone, which is produced from the compacted remains of marine fossils. It also led to the deposition of other sedimentary rocks like shale and sandstones. Following the seaway's recession around 60 million years ago, there was a period of relative quiet. Right now, I am in a huge basalt flow where millions of cubic feet of a volcanic rock called basalt emerged out of the ground thousands of years ago because of the volcanism that was in this region. But why did it come out here, and why is there so much volcanism in this area in general? Well, right now we are in the Rio Grande Rift area. Near the Rio Grande, all throughout New Mexico, there is a ton of volcanism. And it's believed to be caused because two areas in New Mexico are actually spreading away from each other. So what does this really mean? Well, I'll tell you right now. Soon after the seaway receded, many things began to change. The legendary Laramide orogeny took place. An orogeny is simply a mountain-building event. I've covered a few theories on this channel as to how this mountain building episode potentially went down, but my favorite theory is the hit and run model. The hit and run model suggests that a huge island known as a superterrane was slammed into North America at a weird angle. Plates are pieces of the upper layer of Earth which move separately from one another due to currents in inner Earth dragging them along. There are continental plates like North America and oceanic plates like the Pacific Plate. Before the Pacific Plate was next to North America, there was a different one known as the Farallon Oceanic Plate which existed. This is the plate that held the superterrane I mentioned earlier. Oceanic plates are dense, so when they are driven into continental plates, they sink under them in a process known as subduction. This process sloughed off the superterrane onto North America, the hit part of the theory. The Farallon then changed direction, which caused immense pressures and ultimately uplifted an ancient section of the Rocky Mountains, the run part of the theory. Fast forwarding past this, eventually the Farallon fully subducted, but it was also spreading away from the Pacific Plate, which it partially dragged under North America. This directional difference caused a bunch of stress, and the San Andreas Fault in California formed because of this stress 10 to 15 million years ago. This caused the crust in the Rio Grande area to begin spreading apart, thus creating a rift zone. A rift is essentially an area where Earth's crust is spreading away from itself in different directions. Molten rock pushing up and causing the spreading made its way to the surface through faults. Major faults like the Fitzgerald, the Rob Lebdo, and the Aden faults run through this area. Faults are essentially like cracks in Earth that exist to relieve tension that is generated by plate tectonics. There are several types of different faults, but the main ones in the Potrillo range are called normal faults. Normal faults are simply just zones where land is sinking or raising up relative to the opposite side of the fault. The Potrillos are a lot like other mountains in the Basin and Range province where this area lies, and because of that, we have to talk about horst and graben topography. So a horst is essentially like a mountain, and a graben is like a valley, and they form when the Earth is stretching apart in two normal faults, which, as I explained earlier, are kind of like cracks in the Earth that are relieving the tension of plate tectonics. When those two normal faults form next to each other, they lift up the area in between them called the footwall and sink the area next to them called the hanging wall, forming horst and graben topography. These faults also do a great job of transporting magma to the surface, and thus you get a bunch of volcanoes. The wilderness is absolutely covered in a myriad of different volcanic types, from cinder cones to spatter cones to shield volcanoes, and right behind me, Kilburn Hole, this is a maar. Essentially, when really hot molten rock underneath the earth interacts with cold groundwater, it makes that groundwater flash to steam, which creates a lot of pressure and explodes out these huge holes, which we call maars. The Potrio Mountains are a complex that has existed for a little less than 1 million years. Some of the volcanoes in this area are around 900,000 years old. But some of the cinder cones in this field, like some of the ones behind me, can be as little as only 20,000 years old. In fact, cinder cones are the most prevalent volcano in this region. There's about 150 of the things. Cinder cones form from arc-like Strombolian eruptions, and other types of volcanoes in the area, like shield volcanoes, form from mild oozing eruptions, which slowly layer dark basaltic lava into a giant mound. As time continues to pass, the likelihood of another eruption from this geologically young and remote wilderness is far from zero. I highly encourage a visit to this place, especially to the Kilburn Hole, but just be wary as it is in a quite sketchy part of the country. Thank you very much for watching this deep dive into the Potrio Mountains of southern New Mexico. If you enjoyed this content, please leave a like and comment down below. New geologic deep dive videos coming out every 2 weeks.